With one hand, Emily held her coffee cup, and with the other, her tote bag. Her scrubs were still a little crumpled from the hurried morning in New York City. The air was heavy with the smell of urgent traffic and bagels. Missing the 705 train would only make her already tardy for her shift at the hospital worse. As she ran through the turnstiles, her eyes were fixed on the open doors of a train that appeared to be her rescue, while the screech of approaching tube cars reverberated around the platform. Just as the doors hissed shut, she leaped in. She didn't realize something was amiss until 3 stops later. The station's names didn't correspond with her typical path. Panic erupted. Her chest grew constricted. She had taken the incorrect train. She struggled to check the map on her phone, but there was obviously no connectivity. Her veins throbbed with frustration today, of all days. She tightened her jaw and slumped into a seat, attempting to determine the fastest method of transfer. She gazed out the window at the haze of tunnels and graffiti as the train thundered on. What more might go wrong? The feeling of powerlessness began to creep in. However, she was unaware in that silent, terrible moment that this erroneous turn would bring her precisely to her intended destination because, 3 cars down, someone lay collapsed on the ground, invisible and uncared for. Although she was unaware of it at the time, fate was going to ruin her day with something much more significant. Emily got up to head for the exit in the hopes of changing lines at the next station when the train rocked. The scene stopped her cold as she got into the accompanying automobile. An older man was slumped against a pole near the center of the car. Unmoving, dirty coat, twisted gray beard people were sitting a few feet away, pretending not to notice as their eyes were fixed on their phones and headphones. One woman even crossed his legs without blinking. Emily stopped. Her heart was racing. Was he dangerously intoxicated? She approached the nurse in her ward warily, then stopped out of dread and glanced again. His fingers trembled a little, but not enough to matter because he was still alive and nobody was assisting him. She knelt down and looked into his face. His lips were parched and his skin looked pallid. He glanced up momentarily, his eyes glazed and uncertain. Her gentle question was, "Sir, can you hear me?" Without a reply, she took a tiny water bottle out of her bag, unscrewed the cap, and put it to his lips. He winced and then took a tiny sip. The traveler continued to look straight ahead without emotion. As training took over, Emily's pulse calmed, and she crouched next to him, attempting to gauge his health. Her soothing, deep voice for shift no longer mattered to her. This was what was important now. She stood and waved for assistance as the train slowed into the next station, her voice forceful. "He requires medical care." Everyone turned their heads away, but she moved forward. The train screeched to a halt, and Emily struggled to assist the guy stand up. He leaned heavily on her legs and breathed shallowly. They arrived at the platform together, and she gently lowered him onto a bench. Like water flowing around a rock, people passed them, while some glanced. The majority didn't because of the morning crowd's hurried pace. She knelt next to him once more and took his pulse, which was still irregular, but there. She provided additional water while draping her coat over his shoulders. "You're all right now," she muttered. He said, pain perhaps, or disbelief, as he gazed into her eyes, which were filled with something weighty and ancient. When he said, "Thank you. No one has looked at me in days," his voice broke. Emily took a deep breath. His remarks had a more profound effect on her than she had anticipated. She summoned emergency services and gave them calm, straightforward instructions. She sat next to him on the cold bench while she waited, her phone ringing with hospital missed calls. Her supervisor wouldn't be pleased, but now that her shift had begun, it didn't matter. For a brief while, only a nurse and a man who had been overlooked by the mob were visible in the fuzzy surroundings. She was unaware of his backstory. Kindness wasn't required, and no information was requested. Emily grinned faintly as the sirens approached, wiping a small amount of dust off his sleeve. She didn't show up for work. She failed to make her halt. However, she discovered something more significant at that same moment. After a lengthy shift, Emily came home 3 days later. She felt fatigue gripping her like a second skin. She saw a sleek black envelope nestled beneath the handle when she unlocked the door. No stamp was supplied by hand. She opened it out of curiosity to see a handwritten note in exquisite script on thick ivory paper with gold trim. "You didn't know me, Emily dear. You gave me more than anyone else has ever given me, even though you didn't ask for anything. Your dignity, your emotions, and your time. I go by Elliot Ross. I've spent years accumulating fortune only to discover that I'd lost contact with the people I promised to serve. I went out with nothing to see whether anyone would still see me. Maybe you've heard it on the news or seen it on the side of a building. Thank you, but only you did. Let's get together soon. I want to work with you on something. Emily blinked as she read the name again. Ross. Elliot, the rich tech entrepreneur and philanthropist, shuts out the man on the tube floor. As she sat on the couch with her hands shaking and her knees giving slightly, she remembered his sunken gaze and trembling fingers. He had not simply become disoriented in the tube. She had reached out to him in an instinctual act of charity when no one else would. The man no one assisted was someone everyone knew. He had been lost in the world. Mothers spoke softly, nurses hurried through the immaculate, welcoming hallways, and children laughed in the waiting area as sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the recently constructed community clinic in Brooklyn. Emily was in the center of it all. She was the director of a clinic that provided care to people the world frequently ignored, not simply a weary nurse on the tube. The Ross was written on the plaque near the entryway. Emily's Center for Compassionate Health, which was fully funded by Elliot Ross, was present at the ribbon-cutting ceremony. A companion with a purpose instead than a mysterious stranger in rags, Emily's gaze was fixed on the faces of those entering through the doors as the cameras flashed. People who once needed someone to notice them needed someone like Elliot. Her deed of generosity had a cascading effect that resulted in real, long-lasting impact in addition to gifts and media attention. Her unanticipated actions changed not just a life, but also a legacy. Elliot turned to her and grinned after the wedding. By just sitting next to me, you transformed my entire universe. She returned the smile, feeling a little overwhelmed by the experience. The wrong train can occasionally lead you to the correct destination after a misstop. Her diversion turned into a place of hope for improvement and a reminder that good deeds are always appreciated.